Hey, Patreons.
Hello.
As we get set up here for another free-for-all, no, we're going to pause and restart this. Do you see why? I can't reach that high into the screen. Can you? You see it right up there?
Oh, yeah. Wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah. This must be one of
The weak batteries.
the weak batteries.
Okay, yes. Boop.
Oh.
Okay, yes, we boopeted.
All right. Hey, Patreons. We're getting ready to get started again.
Yes.
And this should give you a hint that I've got crap written down in front of me about the show content.
Good. And so far from what I've seen, everyone got their shirts and stickers. Thank you very much. We really appreciate everything.
We really do. And actually, I got Mo.
Yes.
And Scott and I talked about it. I think the next order of stickers, we didn't realize that they came on a white vinyl backing. Apologies for that. We are going to order them next time on a clear vinyl backing.
Correct.
So that they will match your Jeep perfectly.
Yes. Exactly.
Such is. And I got to give a Patreon level shout out to one of our... there he is. The Jeep Lab. There you go, Mark. You always said you wanted to shout out.
There you go. He's good people.
He is. He's really good people. All right. Are we ready to begin the show?
Yes, show 104. We got to remember to say that at the beginning.
We do?
We should.
Okay. It's in the title, you know.
It's proper podcasting etiquette. Breaking the law. Okay, sorry. Because Dory just did it with Gunner. Washing the dog. You start it.
Hey, Jeeples, Kevin here. Welcome to another episode 104, in fact, of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I'm Kevin, the engineer, the guy who reads instructions, uses the correct tools most of the time, and follows those instructions. And my co-host is...
And I'm Scott. I'm the slapstick parts guy who sometimes reads the instructions, but more of the time is spoon-fed from Kevin. I have now used a torque wrench because of the mighty meatball scenario. And
which will be explained in the show.
Yes. So while we will share what worked for us as well as what didn't, remember it's always up to you to do your research. So remember,
read the instructions, please. Read them, comprehend them, and most importantly,
follow them.
Manufacturers put a lot of effort into it, and they're there for a reason, not just to wipe up your tools after you're done working on things. Because otherwise you'll want to use them the next time when you're trying to fix what you misinstalled.
Or hand them to the child to go, here you go, coloring book.
You know what? Some of the instructions we've gotten from another part of the world could use color enhancement.
Kind of like some ones the ones we did that didn't say about sizes and sides and stuff like that. That was a little fun with certain things.
Yeah, which we'll discuss later.
Yes. Speaking of which, we wanted to say a big thank you to our last episode. Because that was heavy tech. So as I made the joke earlier, tech talking with Kevin and Scott, probably going forward because Scott broke reverse. I didn't break reverse, guys.
He didn't. No. And folks, I was all prepared to apologize for a tech-heavy session, but that's just the way life threw it at us. And apparently, it was extremely well received. So thank you. That was a pleasant surprise on my part.
Yeah, the download said, no, we don't like Scott's jokes. I'm like, wow, that hurt. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I don't think so. I think you softened what would be a long and boring. We could go into the British broadcast system, David Attenborough, and over here we have the Jeep in its natural habitat.
I'm over mouthing to the Patreons.
No, and I wouldn't do that to you.
Bueller.
Well, I will say, guys, I hope everybody had a safe and happy Halloween. I wonder if you guys got trick-or-treaters?
I don't know. Let's see. Well, we had a full moon. Some parts had a hurricane. And other things going on in the news, but moving on.
Yes. And we all do want to stress, I do want to do my one PSA.
Yes.
I don't care who, but get your butt out there if you haven't already and vote. Okay? Particularly this year as what I want to call stratified this country is in its political environment. So I'll just use that terminology.
Yes.
Voting is probably more important than ever. So
yes.
Please, if you haven't voted early, voted by mail, get out to your polling center. I don't care if you got to put on a level 4 moon suit. Go vote.
Exactly.
That was it. I just wanted to make that point. So.
I have my PSA.
Okay.
And I will not judge any of our listeners if they have the Reese Cup tax in their household and the kids get the Kevin grabs Reese Cups. You know,
the Patreons can see me holding out Reese Minis.
Hey, can I see that again?
What?
I was going to take one anyways.
You are.
So, that's where I learned about taxes in my household. You know, I come home with Reese Cups.
Your mom likes Reese Cups.
Yeah. The reason why I can't feel my feet anymore. Moving on.
So, back to the reference on the tech show.
Yes.
Guys, success it breeds offspring.
Yes, it does.
And in all honesty, what we do want to let you know is it is finally below 98 degrees out here in Florida.
Yeah.
And hence the fact that we are in relatively cooler weather. To us, it is somewhat cool. I can actually walk to the mailbox and back and not need a change of clothing.
Is it raining?
No. It's just Florida. All of those little issues that we tried to ignore all summer because, what did you say, Scott? You could put a chrome wrench out for 3 minutes and get third-degree burns.
Well, we made the joke, you're trying to change your air filter from underneath your Jeep.
Because it's cooler.
Because it's cooler, even if the engine's still hot.
Yeah.
You know, and you set the wrench outside for a quick second, and then you pick it back up, and it's 180 degrees.
Yes, you could do marshmallows on it. So all of a sudden, everything they were like, no, I think it'll last. You're going, okay, is that rattle a bearing knock or just a bushing?
Off. Kind of like when
we will discuss that one later.
It's like I'm driving down the road, like, man, is one of my shackles loose? Oh no, that's just a bushing.
And your wife going, when are you going to put my option A on my Jeep?
Because I'm tired of tripping on them in the living room.
Well, she didn't say that to me, but and then same thing with me. I just didn't drive my Jeep, even though the transmission service needed to be done, and it was telling me in no uncertain terms, like, I don't want to go in reverse.
Yeah.
And okay, then you can stay in the garage.
I'm taking the truck.
So we have been very busy.
Yes.
That, and also, quite honestly, Scott finally got some time off from work. You weren't overtime to second shift to overtime, and can you come in at night and stack boxes and empty trash cans?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So there are advantages to being retired. Every day is Saturday, but no day is payday.
Weekends don't mean the same, except to get to hang out with your non-working friends.
Yeah, well, except that a lot of my non-working friends are working weekends now because they work in Jeep shops that are open on the weekends.
Yes. So on that note, so where did you want to start off first?
Well, I wanted to start off with a shout out to Zach. And Zach had emailed me a couple of questions that were really good. And what it was that he was asking questions for his research.
Right.
And while I'm not ever going to tell somebody what's right for them, because I don't know, I will share with what was right with me.
Correct.
And Zach had asked about my upgrades, particularly my front axle upgrades to slightly altered. And he had some really good questions. He wanted to know, why did I choose who I chose? And I shared with him the fact that one of the key for me is, a lot of the axles are very similar. They may even come with some of the same castings for the pumpkin, and there's not a whole lot of people that do the castings. But what sent me to ProRock, to Dynatrack, was the fact that the tech team actually was willing to work with me before. I hadn't spent $1 with them, and they spent probably a total of 4 hours talking to me
Right.
and sending me links to information and helping me make the right decision. There are other issues. I'm not going to go into great detail on those, but things like you don't actually buy an off-the-shelf Pro Rock.
Right.
It looks like it on the website, but what you find out is they build every axle to your order. So you choose, okay, you want a Pro Rock 44 housing? Great. What tubes do you want? They have different diameters, or not, wall thicknesses.
Right.
And they are willing to share with you that, okay, yeah, everybody immediately grabs to the real thick one. That's strong.
Right.
But is that right for you? Do you need that extra weight? You know, is that moving the fusible link? And they'll talk you through it. I ended up going with the mid-range tube,
Yeah,
which was more than heavy enough.
Because on some thickness, you can't run certain shafts.
Correct. You can't actually fit certain shafts in there. And you actually can tell them that you want more included angle. That's the angle between your caster angle, the imaginary line between your two ball joints on your C's, and your pinion center line as it points back. And the stock Jeep axles came in two flavors. They're pretty much, most of them are 6 degree included, which when the pinion was level in a unlifted Jeep, you got about 6 degrees of caster, which
Right.
was fine. And then we go and lift them, and we need to tilt the pinion up, and we lose caster. A few of the XJs had 10 degrees included angle, which was very nice. But you can actually get even more if you need it. So you can measure what your pinion angle is, and then figure out what you want your caster to be at that pinion angle, and they will make it for you to that angle. And so there's all these choices of, you know, whose gears do you want? What locker assembly do you want?
It's almost a la carte.
Yeah, it really is. You know, and then he asked a really good question, which was, if I had to do it all over again, would I still go to Dynatrac? And the answer was a very simple one word: yep.
Yep.
They did good. He asked me about my axle width and why, and I explained we talked track width a little bit, and the fact that I personally, and this is just my opinion, think over width axles, you know, putting JK axles under a TJ really doesn't gain you a lot for your effort, because when you take off the factory rims, which are 5.5 inch back set, and put on aftermarkets, which are 3.5 inch back set, you've just pushed your track out 2 inches on either side.
Right.
So you just did the same thing by just replacing your rims.
Correct.
Because, you know, your track width just got widened, which is why your tires now hang outside your factory fenders if you keep your flares on, and people either cut their fenders off, or like me, they have to go to the wider aftermarket 7-inch flares.
Yeah, because some municipalities, you cannot have tire.
The whole state of Pennsylvania, you can't have a hangout. And he talked about what the difference of width is and that kind of stuff. And we talked a little bit about the fact that there's a trade-off. You can widen your stance, but unless you change your suspension spring rates, you may actually feel like you're more tippy. Because by widening the track, you're moving the lever arm that the ground pushes back on the Jeep out further. You're giving it more leverage against your springs. So the body roll tends to be a little more pronounced. Okay. Now, if you know about it, you just get a higher rate spring that stiffens it back up again to where you have that better feel. In either case, you still have the same roll center, okay, with the wider track, which is good.
Right.
It's just a lot of people go with the wide track and go, my God, what'd they do? My Jeep feels, kind of tippy. Well, that's because you
did.
Yeah, but it's more stable, if you can believe that.
Right.
Because you're not feeling the Jeep tip over, which is the axle lifting up the one tire off the ground. That's tip over. But body roll is just the body rolling in relationship to the axles.
Correct.
And we talked about a few of those sort of things. And then we got into the sound deadening. And it was funny. He was saying, well, I wonder about this material and that material. And he basically was describing doing exactly what I did do, just slightly altered.
And we did to the front half of mine.
Which is the bitumen type of sound deadening and bed rug, and I went with both. Not only, and does it make the Jeep quieter? Yeah. Magnitudes quieter. I could probably record in there. And it was a great email. It was an absolutely wonderful set of questions, Zach. So that's awesome. And he also followed up with another email, which I have not replied to. So I'm going to right now, live. Well, almost nearly kind of live since it's a podcast.
Live from the past.
I had sent him a copy of my build sheet. And that's actually the build sheet that Dynatrack sent me in response to my order. And he said, I see the build sheet that you went with the Eaton lockers, a reason why I chose Eaton over ARB. And yeah, real easy, because this was a replacement for the front axle I'd already built once with an Eaton locker in it, so I already had an entire Eaton system for my front and rears, so I was marrying up to an existing system. Now, I think the heart of his question is more like, why Eaton over ARB? Honestly, they're both great lockers. ARB, though, requires an air compressor and air lines. And I didn't have room to mount an air compressor internally the way I would have liked to. And for me, the simplicity of the electric locker just worked. Yes, I know there's trade-offs. I know that an Eaton if you stop locked and then reverse, it will unlock and then relock in reverse because of the nature of the ramp of the cam system. Whereas the ARB, well, once the piston slams that locker in, it's in.
Yeah.
So I have to know that if I'm rocking the Jeep out of mud, that I don't slam it forward reverse, because I'll bust my locker.
Right.
But that's because I read the instructions and I saw the warnings. Otherwise, short of the wire shearing off at the actual axle housing where it goes in there, I can fix an electrical wire with a sharp rock and twisting bare ends together. Sheared air lines, you got to carry a kit around with it. So for me and my type of wheeling, the electric locker was more convenient, not better. Just more convenient. So that's why I went with an Eaton. You said that they noticed that I bought it with 30 spline axle shaft and did not go with 35 spline. I didn't feel I needed it. I had never broke even my 30 axles, and 35 splines are more expensive. And there comes into an issue that if you do damage on the trail, I can use stock replacement shafts to get home.
Right.
All right. And that's a thing I don't think a lot of people think about unless you're carrying your custom spares. Okay. If you actually do break one, you're kind of up a creek.
You have to wait till you get another 35 spline shaft.
Right. Whereas I can actually go to a parts store, believe it or not, and overnight a standard 30 spline shaft. Mm-hmm. Now, I do run chrome moly 30 spline shafts, which are significantly up spec from the originals. It is a front axle, not a rear axle, so it doesn't see quite the loading, and I don't typically rock bounce, which is where you tend to strip out splines and break shafts. Not saying that I couldn't. I could. And yeah, Scott's been with me on a few of the trails where it got pretty wild and hairy. Yeah. But so far, I haven't destroyed them. I also only run 33-inch tall tires. So again, you can't look at a piece in exclusion. If you build a Jeep that way, you're going to have a 4.5-ton monster that you can't afford to move.
Yeah.
And then the last question you asked was how did your bed rug fit after sound deadening material? Like it was made for it.
Yeah.
The sound deadening material is only about 1/8 of an inch thick. It didn't affect any dimension. There's nothing in the Jeep in a TJ that's tolerances that close anyway. It's kind of the... I'm sorry, most of the measurements on a TJ follow an old thing from World War II called the TLAR measurement system. You familiar with the TLAR?
I am not familiar.
TLAR. TLAR. Okay. That looks about right. So
it's funny because we did a little nitty thing on my Jeep. We had to, my Jeep had the hood up on one side, and of course we got that led to something else. And I kind of looked at it, and it reminded me of another group of automotive enthusiasts. The guys with the Teslas, apparently they have a big problem with panel gaps. Mm-hmm. So some people even have the personalized license plate panel gap.
Yeah.
But I looked at the TJ and I'm like, I'm glad we fixed it, but I'm also thinking the same thing you just did. It's like, it's a Jeep.
Yeah.
I'm going to ruin what we do the first time I hit something again.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, we right before this show, we were out there looking, and his hood wasn't quite fitting right anymore. And it was okay. Your one prop rod on the driver's side had shifted, loosen that, went plunk, back into place. Oh, see? Tighten that back down. And then, gee, your hood hinge. Now, that one, I don't know how that happened, but your passenger's hood hinge on the body was bent. And a 2x4 and a pound and a half
hammer,
hand sledge, and didn't even mark the paint. It just pushed the hinge back into position, and then we adjusted the bumpers, and gee, the hood closes now,
and it looks even too.
It looks even,
which is really great.
And Zach, to your last question about my material, I use Noico brand on the material. I'm not going to go into further the question because I am listing a brand name here, not a sponsor, but found them to be perfectly fine and work as my bitumen-based matting material. It can be bought as a silver or as a black. It doesn't matter. I know everybody is saying the Dynamat is better. I have noticed no difference personally. I'm not going to give you a quality statement one way or the other because I don't really have one. I've never bothered with it. And headliners for the factory LJ, I'm sorry, mine came with mine, so I don't have a recommendation on a color or a source or an installer for a material. I know that if you contact Bedrug, they used to be able to sell you just the raw materials rather than just the cut mats. You could buy it by the yard or square roll or something like that. So you may want to look into that if you're concerned about a match. On the other hand, there's a Jeep between the headliner and the floor mat, and if it doesn't match exactly perfect, the only time that somebody will see it is you're rolling down a hill, because then you'll be seeing top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, bottom until you come to a stop.
And let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
LGs are getting rarer and rarer to find.
Again, Zach, great email, wonderful questions. Thanks for responding, and if you got any more, give me a shout. So that was his letter. Now, well, let's get started into the way the last 4 weeks have been. So why don't we start with the first project that made your half of the financial department stop giving you the evil eye every night?
Well, and that's one of the things we did, is that I did two things, actually. First off, I contacted Mark at the Jeep Lab, and I said, hey, I need to get some steps. Can you get me some amp research? And he said, yep. And I said, order them. And we got them coming, got them delivered. And the wife wanted to do something really cool. She wanted to have it to where we can do trail doors, because the one thing about the amp research Power Step XLs is they're not like the Rockslide Engineering. You know, there's no switch overrides if you don't have doors on. Once you take the doors off, they're up. You know, so like we talk about, you contact the manufacturer and say, hey, is this a switch to ground or switch to power? And they go, what's a switch to ground? Okay, then thank you very much. And then I started looking at magnetic proximity switches, which is how the Rockslide Engineering works. So we're thinking about maybe tinkering with that a little bit, so that way.
Let's first, I want to back up and use this as an example.
Yeah.
Folks, sorry, I'm finishing my Reese tax. I want to talk a little bit about Scott and Dory's travel to selecting the amp steps. He jumped into that because it's done with him and it's already passed. The check is cleared, so there's no return. But you know, the first thing Dory wanted, she realized she wanted steps. Right. All right. And initially, it was, everybody said, oh, well, you have Rockslide Engineering's, and that kind of was the first thought that everybody had. But Dory started having an honest moment. She got down and got honest with herself, because I talked to her a little bit about it during the plan. How are you going to use your Jeep, and how do you want these steps to help? And that's when she brought up the point about, well, it's not really for the trail that she wanted these steps, is it? No. It's for Scott's wife. It works in the medical profession. I don't know how far to go with that, so we'll just leave it at that.
She's on her feet all day.
And she's on her feet all day. And some days it's in, you know, soft-soled shoes. Some days she's in heels all day. And she is somewhat vertically challenged. Yes. She's not the tallest young lady in the world. And she goes out to that Gladiator, which is factory. However, you open the door threshold is a fair ways up.
It wasn't the JK on a 4-inch lift with 35s.
No, but it still required her to perform a small gymnastic maneuver to get up into the cab of the truck.
And after a 12-hour shift.
Right. So she said, the rock slides are nice, but the step is so narrow, which is, to me, a benefit in my world, because when I do it on the trail, it's not in the way, and if you've got muddy boots, most of the mud falls off, and not get carried up into the mechanisms.
Yeah.
But she was looking for something that she could step up into, even in street shoes, even in heels. She was explicit with that. So then they started looking around, and they shopped for their need. And this is a great example of exactly what I'm talking about when we say do your research and make your decisions. Is she realized that, okay, this is really what I want it for. But then I guess it was you or her, well, someday we may wheel it. So there's an option that you were able to get for the amp step.
Yes.
Is that where you were smiling at me for?
I'm smiling at you because, one, it's like, again, when
reliving.
It's not reliving, but it's we'd be honest with people. We were honest about everything in the show.
Yeah.
When we're honest with listeners, and I'm glad you chimed in with that, because you're right. That was an important step I missed. And that's the one thing we constantly tell people, and maybe the next show we'll cover about being honest with yourself. Again, like everyone always says, if you don't have 40-inch tires and 1-ton axles, you're not Jeeping. Well, that's not being honest to ourselves.
Tell that to Grandpa crossing the crack in his Willys,
his flat fender
Willys
with a 4-cylinder,
the 4 cylinders and the unidirectional military tires.
Exactly. So looking at
Who
that,
had the bigger smile on her face.
Exactly, because he didn't spend near as much as anyone else did. But moving on, is that we looked at that, and there is an option that the PowerStep XL, which I already mentioned, has the rocker arbor.
Yep.
And that was the selling point for Dory, because not only for protection, from limited amount of trail rocks, because you're still the step's still going to the beating.
Yeah.
But her case, and as trivial as this sounds, it's important to both of us. Door dings.
Door dings, yep.
Yeah, it sticks out about 1.5 inches, 2 inches out, and the Gladiator is a black Jeep, and nothing says hello like a dent in a door like our JK did. 2 weeks before I put her side armor on, someone just bashed the side of her driver door, and it's the tiniest of a nickel-sized dent, but to me, it's like the whole side had been wiped out by a tree.
Yep.
But again, being honest with herself, that was important.
So, and I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but this was a classic example of folks where, and sorry, Dory, I'm going to spill a little beans here. She is a gung-ho off-roader.
Yeah.
And the bigger the better, the faster, the knobbier the tires. It'll go anywhere. But she sat down and was honest with herself of, what am I really using my Jeep for? We have Scott's Jeep to go out and wheel in, which is an LJ. And she likes her Glad, and she likes a little bit of the glamour. And will it never go off-road? No, I believe that once it receives its first shopping cart, and
please don't say that. Please.
I know, but you and I both know we're in Florida here. You mean that's not the cart corral?
Oh man, you're getting too close to home on that one.
Remember, I'm in that age bracket, dude.
No. There was a Walmart incident. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh, you threw your body between the Jeep and the cart?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
So
it was only a broken rib.
This Jeep will see trails soon enough.
Yeah.
It's just right now, it's pretty, it's new, and it's just mine is the attitude, and I don't mean me, but I know that's in her.
Well, speaking of being honest with yourself, and this is actually, Dory has mentioned this a lot of times, because again, we talk about bench building and stuff like that, and I'm glad this is a really good segue, because this is really important, because Dory and I we had the YJ.
Yep.
We bought the JK because we wanted the newer, more room, the whole 9 yards. Yep. But we learned very quickly the limitations of the JK platform. The electric nannies, like you can't spin your wheels.
Yeah.
It was too big. It was too fragile when you hit a mud hole at 80 miles an hour. But the point is, though, is that Dory kind of sees how well your Jeep does. She sees how well my Jeep does. She sees how parts are much cheaper
Yep. For the moment, till they
the
become
moment.
Antweak.
Yeah, and tweak. But, I always told her, I said, I like the idea of both of us having the same kind of Jeep. So if we have to carry one set of spare axle shafts, they fit both Jeeps. And so she kind of really likes the idea of once we get stabilized and get the new house, she wants to build a TJ.
That's cool.
Or an LJ. And I said, not the one where first thing me and you were doing is welding a cage in it, because I have a feeling it's going to end up on its roof.
Yeah, well, we have some very good friends now married with businesses whose first date was, hey, let's go out and see if we can roll my Jeep over.
Yes, and she'll be sitting there gripping the wheel with a smile on her face upside down.
She will. She will. Absolutely. Going, oh, there's my my lost set of keys.
No, quick, put it on the wheels. I want to try it again. But that's the way she is. And I think the TJ would be a much more stouter platform.
And that's between you guys. I just wanted to make note that even podcast co-hosts can have an attack of reality, and it was just really nice to see, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to see that you guys, because ultimately you've already confirmed to me that she is very happy that she made that choice.
Yeah, she is ecstatic.
The first time I've ever gotten an email of that thank you was the week after we put the steps on, and she had a rather lengthy multi-shift week. And she was like walking out to and she wrote that, I walked out to my Jeep and opened the door, and it's like, the angels, here, step up gently. And
with the bright and shiny LED lights.
So
it was money well spent, and stay tuned, because we are going to look at the idea of using the proximity switches.
Yeah, we've got some ideas for some customs, but no sharing that yet.
Yeah, no sharing yet, but the one idea you had, man. Lilu would be proud. That's all I'm going to say. But no, again, it's really cool because, one, like we talked about, contact the manufacturer, read the instructions both online, and, watch the instructions online, and I also read the instructions in PDF form.
Yep.
So I had a good idea going through. And I am going to kind of put a caveat to that. The times they put, 4 to 5 hours, I'd like to know how they're doing that.
Experience.
Because, me and you were experienced, and it still took 8 hours.
No. I didn't say experienced. I said experience singular. They have experience installing their steps.
Okay.
All right. I just point out to you, how long did it take us to do the first side?
2 hours to get everything bolted up.
How long did it take us to do the second side?
30 minutes.
Bingo. That is a 4-fold reduction in time. Just doing one side to the other. And I will comment to AMP, should you guys be listening, your directions are okay.
They're a bit
but
ambiguous.
They're inconsistent. Okay.
Yeah.
And that did cause us some consternation. And reach out to us and we'll explain it to you.
Yeah.
What it was some simple stuff. They have you label all the screws, and we did. We put them in separate bowls with the label that this is an H, this is a G, this is an I, this is an A. And then you started off fantastic. Use bolt A with washer C. And then partway through, bolt this with supplied hardware.
Which one?
Okay, which one? Where? And then there was some other things about, fasten to provided T-nuts. Where are the T-nuts? There are no T-nuts in here. Well, okay, they were pre-installed in the step. We didn't know that because I spent more time hunting for the T-nuts and all the packaging.
Exactly.
So there are some things. So there's a free offer to AMP. If you'd like to get with us, we'll share with you. I'll mark up your instructions because they're good, but they're ambiguous in places. They kind of get really detailed, and then they get really loose, and then really detailed, and then really loose.
They told us the torque specs, X amount of foot-pounds to do this area, and it was great. But all in all, I mean, the install itself went rather well.
It did. It was very doable. We didn't even really employ power tools. This was pretty much a hand tool job, mainly because Dory was in the house, and if anything went, and if we had that, if she heard the, oh crap, or oh that's not good, we would have probably died on the floor. No, actually, I prefer when working with finished materials, aluminums and fresh painted steel and all that kind of stuff. I'm just a few extra minutes to run it down by hand is worth it.
Yeah.
So. No, great steps, and a great choice, I think, for you guys. I really do. That's awesome.
The other cool thing that we did that was really kind of quick is we went ahead and I snagged myself a steel Rubicon takeoff bumper, at a great price. And that's the one upgrade I really wish we would have gotten when we bought the truck, because we got the Tupperware one.
Yeah.
But again, it was, yes, the winch plate's probably going to cost me $250 to go with it.
But you got what you want.
But I have either a stubby or a full width bumper, and I got a bull bar and an extra set of fog lamps, which you can't beat that.
Right. Now, before we leave your steps.
Yes.
Okay, because you were down there laying on your back with me. This has 2 power hinges per side, so you really need 2 people. You can do it with 1, but it really works better with 2. So you notice that you got lots and lots and lots of linkages under there. And you got 2 electric motors, and you got all those little gewgaws. So what's your maintenance plan?
Well, I read the instruction, and it says to spray it off with water once in a while.
Yep.
But I think I'm going to get with you and maybe contact the manufacturer and say, hey, should the joints need a little grease, what kind of grease should I be using, or silicone or lube or something? And
I would not spray them, just Kevin speaking, if they don't answer, is I would not be spraying them with anything of petroleum grease, because they had plastic bushings in them.
Yep.
So that's going to send you into more of the either silicones or the lithium-based greases, which are typically formulated for plastics. And why we bring this up, folks, that was a rather obvious segue on my part, is another topic we want to talk about a little bit. Scott brought it up, and that is he's starting to run into some friends who are making purchases of equipment and parts and lifts. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yes. Why don't we take a quick break, and we'll dive right into this. Alrighty. We'll be right back. I'll let you do the corporate Patreon thing.
Okay.
Hey, listeners, don't forget to check out, as always, the great information and stuff that we have. Oh, damn it. I'm taking over.
I'm leaving that in for the Patreons.
I know. Hi, Patreon. Hey, listeners. Hey, don't forget to check out all the great content on the 4x4 Radio Network, and also our own website we have, onthetrailpodcast.com. I can't remember it, to be honest with you, but I can't forget the old .com part, I always forget that kind of stuff. But the best part about it is that lots of cool links in there to check out. Also, Crawling for the Fallen's coming up soon. So, again, check out the website, Off-Road United, and that will get you in the right area. I think the November 13th is when it happens. But, yes, Off-Road, Kevin's showing the Patreons the thing right now. And as always, make sure if you have time and want to become a supporter, Kevin?
Yes.
Why don't you tell them about our Patreon page?
Our Patreon, you just did.
I know.
We have a Patreon page. We appreciate our Patreons, both the individuals as well as our corporate Patreons.
I'm leaving that in for the Patreons.
Well, you can leave it in for the rest of the listeners, too.
Fine.
Well, I'm not repeating myself again. He kind of caught me off guard.
I was trying to go on and on.
He's trying to get me while I finish my Reese cup.
I was trying to give you time. you started unfolding. I'm going, oh, no. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Think of something. .com. That's it. Think of the .com. Yeah.
But big thanks to all of our Patreons, both corporate and individuals. We appreciate your belief in the show.
Yes.
And like Zach, please feel free to send me a question or two. Generally, I will not tell you what to do, because that's really up to you. But as far as information, whys, hows, and even try and help you fix a wiring headache or two, I'll do what I can.
Yeah, and that's on the trail podcast at gmail.com. And a special shout out and thanks to our newest Patreon, Kyle.
Oh, yep. So thank you, Kyle. We do appreciate it.
And we'll get right back onto the show if that's okay with you.
Okay with me.
Well, that went well, didn't it?
No. But next time, tell me you're going to do something like that rather than, surprise me. But hey, if you want ad lib, I'll give you ad lib.
So, on the subject of what didn't work,
Yes.
the Patreons get to see me go, "Hey, Kevin, here you go," and Kevin going, "I'm finishing my Reese cup."
You are the one that even mentioned Reese cups at the beginning of this show, so
I'm staring at mine. My mouth is watering. It's part of my problem.
and I'm over here eating one. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's like I could smell it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yes, back to your subject.
lift maintenance, and that's
Yes.
one of the things that we thought we'd broach as something that we've never heard anybody talk about. And I realized that Scott and I were out at lunch yesterday after doing other jobs on Jeeps, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Yes. He's referring to a issue that he thought now was gone and has returned.
No, I'm talking about the clank, 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 clank is what I'm talking about.
Oh, well, that's gone too. But
Give it time.
yeah, and something that I do, but we realize that I don't think I've ever seen anybody else do or talk about or anything like that.
No.
And that is lift maintenance. And everybody goes, what in the heck is lift maintenance?
And why?
And
Don't
why?
you bolt it on forever?
And that's kind of the thought. And I'm going, well, no. My manufacturer actually gave me lift maintenance instructions. And that would be Metal Cloak. And did a quick little Google search on other brands. Johnny Joint by Curry. Guess what? There's maintenance instructions. A lot of them do. Now, some of the cheap ones don't.
Yeah.
And I started looking at the difference and going, okay, if you have put a lift on your vehicle, well, let's back up. Manufacturer stock equipment. There's nothing in the service manual for a TJ, a YJ, a CJ, JK, LJ for lift maintenance. And that's because factory puts arms on with rubber cleveite bushings, and the worst you'll get is some squeaking. And then the guy will go, squirt it with some WD-40 and it'll be fine.
My eyes twitching.
Yeah, but that's the point. But you've lifted your Jeep, and you've taken those no maintenance cleveite bushings. Basically the clevites can wear until they break away, and then they start clanking, and you replace them.
And that's one of the things that kind of we just brought up replacing. The interwebs is a great source of show material, and one of the persons had mentioned that, hey, didn't say what brand of lift, but it was a mid-arm that had Heim joints.
Okay.
And basically, they were fixed rod ends.
Right. So they were not threaded on. Nope. They were welded on.
Welded on, and the Heim joints were worn.
Yep.
And everyone says, well, just get new Heim joints. And then that means you got to have someone grind them, remove them, re-weld them.
At the right length.
At the right length, and you have to buy the joints. And he was looking at $800 to replace all the Heim joints on all of his control arms.
Correct. And so when you're talking about lifts, I guess where I'm going with this is, your lift is an investment in your Jeep. And depending on how much you invest, you may be investing in a high-level technology, but that may require maintenance. Right. I have seen some of the better ones. The Curry, their Heim joints you can disassemble them and clean them, get the grit out, and grease them and reinstall them. Metal Cloak, they actually give you a tub of grease for their I'm trying to remember that Duraflex joints, and you're supposed to take a snap ring out periodically. Drop the joint. And folks, you can drop one link on most Jeeps, unless you've done something really weird. You can drop one joint at a time and not disturb the suspension, and then put it back up. And you take it down. It's a snap ring with regular snap ring pliers, and you pull it out, slide the guts out, clean them up, lube them up, put them back in. Okay? And it's not like you do this weekly, It's after you've abused it, or if you've been playing in the mud excessively. I do it about every 2 years. I think they recommended yearly, but I don't mind. Have stayed clean, there are some that have grease fittings on them. And you are supposed to lube them like you lube, the ball joints that you never lube. But it's not just lift kits, ball joints. Yeah, factories come with sealed. You go with an upgrade to some of those better ball joints, guess what? They come with a neat little chunk of steel called a Zerk, and that means you're supposed to lube them. I would challenge most people out there with some of these really high-end suspension systems. When was the last time you cleaned, lubricate? Even it's as simple. This is simple. If you have just fixed bushings in polyurethane, do you know that most of them, if you read the fine print, tell you that you're supposed to take something like a small ice pick kind of a thing and push it in, not punching a hole, but between the sleeve and the polyurethane to create a small space, and you're supposed to shoot white lithium up in there.
I wouldn't doubt it. And that's one of the things where I see a lot is everyone goes, well, Metal Cloak is terrible because you have to service your lift.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's take that thought. You bought a Jeep. You know you have to change oil in it. Mm-hmm. You bought a Jeep. You know you have to do this. You know you have to do that. What's with it with once a year when you should be doing maintenance and checking for damage and wear and all that anyways? Because, if you have a TJ, 4,000 pounds is sitting on top of that lift. If you have a JK with everything on it, 6, you have 6,000 pounds sitting on this. I see people go, other brand you don't have to do maintenance on. Yeah, I'm sure you do.
And even if they don't say it, ask yourself that. Oh, so you don't have to do maintenance on it. You want to trust your life to that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't mind doing maintenance. I look at that when I buy the item. Now, kind of wish that the Duraflex joint had a Zerk fitting. But then again, I don't know where I could buy the white because they use a mixed component system with some hydrometer plastics in the joint to help isolate the noise.
Right.
And it does not, you don't use regular axle grease on those. So I'd have to find a company that would sell me a tube full of that grease. But okay, there's a toss up here, and I'll throw this as a bone in that direction, that most of the really good high tolerance joints, Duraflex, Johnny Joint, and those, they're tight to prevent contaminants from getting in. So you can't really use a Zerk fitting because there's nowhere for the waste grease to get out. Right. All right. So, okay. There's a whole school of thought and argument, pro and con, for Heim joint boots that go over Heim joints. Mm-hmm. And there's one group of people that, these are the greatest thing in the world. They keep them clean. They keep them lubed. And there's another class that says, once the contaminants get in the boot, they hold it in there, and it turns into grinding paste,
like a CV axle.
Like a CV axle. And the boots themselves are subject to maintenance, which is clean them up, check for splits, replace them when they get split. So I just sit there and we realize that, maintenance is key. And even if you have factory suspension, your wheel, what did we discover with your shock?
Which one?
Well, the one we just worked on.
Well, the bushing is completely gone.
It was a urethane bushing that degraded, and basically the shock went and spit it out.
Like Gunner trying to take his flea medication pill.
and so the result was Scott was growling earlier because as he was driving, every time he would hit the smallest bump, you would get ka-thunk.
Clank. No, it wasn't a ka-thunk. It was a clank. My nerves were grated. And, of course, like any good Jeeper, the 4 months I let it clank.
Yes.
Cough. And the sad part is that it was 3 bolts and I could have had it done, but like anybody else, I don't want anyone to think I'm like we are elitist, because sometimes we forget or get lazy or don't care or just turn the radio up. But again,
you just ran out of volume.
I ran out of volume. But on that note too, it's also something that I was starting to beat the shock to death.
Yeah.
And then that could very well break one of those bolts back there.
Right.
So yeah, and that's what kind of got me thinking about that. It's like, look, getting up there, checked all the shock bushings. You can buy. It was $12 for 2 shock bushings.
Right. And when I say maintenance, even stock bushings can stand that shot of lubricant. There's rubber lubes that you can shoot into on around Clevite bushings that will extend their life. If nothing else, maintenance may be just clean the bloody thing, because we leave, well, let's face it, as Jeepers, we leave dirt and grime everywhere. Okay? We're not show queens, but dirt and grime mixed with old grease is valve lapping compound, which is really good at grinding stuff away.
Yeah.
And then we wonder, I spent a fortune for this. Why is it already worn out? And if you can swipe your finger and then rub it together with the grease, and if you feel grit in there, that's why it was worn out.
Yeah.
We were looking at your leaks, and I was testing oil and going, what's that feel like? And I'm looking for abrasives. So it's just one of those little things that, okay, maybe you don't need to spit polish your Jeep and shine it with the latest ceramic coat system, whatever. Although Scott and I played with that stuff. The truth is, a little cleanliness where you don't see may save you more money than when you put it on the top. Getting down there with a pressure washer, cleaning out the grease. I can remember there was a point in time where my belly pan was as full of much dirt on top as it was underneath.
Well, everyone thought I was crazy because, and again, once a year, because I'm retentive that way. Especially when the weather gets nice, I would take all 4 wheels and tires off the JK. I would have it on jack stands. I would take the back rotors out, and I would get there with a sponge, a wash mitt.
Yeah.
I would wipe down all the arms. I would wipe down the frames. I would wipe down all the other stuff, and I would literally, like you do the top of the Jeep, wash the undercarriage. Why are you doing that, Scott? 3 reasons. 1, gets the grit out.
Yep.
2, if I ever have a warranty issue,
yeah,
that was the most important. But 3, I can check for leaks. I actually found where the wiring had come apart. The wire loom had come off the body. Something had gone up there and tore the clip off.
Right.
The plug was half melted to the catalytic converter.
Yep.
And I pulled it. There was metal. I'm like, oh boy, that would have been a check engine light, not covered under warranty because that's not manufactured defect.
Yep.
Wrapped it up with electrical tape, fixed the clip, done. I wouldn't have found that had I gone that deep.
Yeah. So all we're trying to do is remind you that parts that you don't think of as regular maintenance really do require regular maintenance. And the best place to find out about that is manufacturer's documentation.
Yeah.
And the beauty today is, even if you threw those instructions away 10 years ago, you can still get the copy online and see what you need to do. And of course, if you bought the great rebuildable ball joints, you better maintain them to be able to rebuild them, because if they're only rebuildable for certain components, that's the thing that's gotten a lot of people. What's the current brand that's a hot thing?
You're putting me on the spot like I did to you now.
I am.
Reese Peanut Butter Cup.
Okay.
I don't know.
Anyway, there are a lot of people that are complaining that they're not rebuildable, even though they say they're rebuildable, because they let them get so far gone, they damage the housing. Well, they only sell you certain components in the rebuild kit, the
wear items.
The wear items. But if you grind them to death with mud and grit because you ran them beyond, and didn't do any maintenance and flush them out, sorry.
That's not manufacturer defect.
That's not a defect. So think about that. Some of the places of maintenance might not be where you think. And if you do have an aftermarket lift kit, take a look. I know that my metal cloak does tell me that I need to clean out the bushings. It's not hard. It's a little tedious because, let's face it, there's 5 bars. And there's 2. Well, there's not actually 2 on every one, because the uppers only have one end have a Duraflex joint. The other ends are through the factory clevites on the axles. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 of those that I have to go take a bolt out, but I do it one at a time. I just get under there, loosen it to 18 millimeters, and take the bolt, drop the arm down. It usually swings down without a problem. Pull one clip, slide the guts out. I have a little pan there with some detergent and water, and I clean them up, and I look for damage, oddball. Take that little tub of the, swear to God, it kind of looks like a white Vaseline, and maybe it is, but it's fine. Yeah. And I do they say, thin coat on the plastic parts, and then reassemble in the reverse order. Put the arm, re-put the snap ring, put it back up, move to the next one. If I sit down and get to it, it takes me about an hour and a half, maybe hour and 45 minutes to go all the way around the Jeep. And it's really kind of nice because you can get out and ride, and you realize, oh man, it was squeaking and pretty stiff before. Now it's back to being nice and soft and quiet and flexible.
you can definitely feel. It's like my father-in-law always said, you can tell when you've did the oil change, and it just runs better.
Yeah, it does.
I said, yeah, well, you're not grinding things together with grinding paste.
Well, I tell you what, I think we're going to keep on this topic, but I think we're going to roll it to another show or another half? What do you think?
I'd say, why don't we save some room for the next show?
Okay.
And we'll come back with show 105, because the last show we did was an hour and 40 minutes. This one's right about the 55-minute range. So.
Right, and by the time we wrap it up, we will be done. And I think this is a good stopping point. We will come back in show 105 in 2 more weeks, and we'll get into all the stuff we didn't cover on this, which was actually real tech that we did with my Jeep, Scott's Jeep, and Scott's Jeep, and Scott's Jeep.
And soon to be a friend of Scott's Gladiator. We'll get to that.
Right. And so there's a little teaser for you. But now that it's cool enough, and it's actually, we have a second one on mine too, since I got back on my steps again. But like I said, the weather's been cooler. We've actually had the opportunity to work on the Jeeps without heat stroke, and that has been a novel and very pleasurable situation.
I do have to make a quick caveat, because you said about going back to your steps.
Yeah.
And I want this known, because I don't want people emailing, hey, is that the reason why? We didn't go amp. Again, we talked about it in the show that we were honest with ourselves.
Right.
But, the Kevin's situation wasn't the reason why we didn't choose that. It was because of what we talked about earlier.
Right.
So I don't want people thinking we just shunned that manufacturer.
No.
Not that
And
at
he's
all.
actually, just in fairness to Rockslide Engineering, I have the very Gen 1 steps. I mean, literally, when I met the guy behind the scenes at a trade show and was looking at his Jeep, and I bought one of the earliest models, and they have since moved on from that particular drive assembly. And they were willing to work with me on replacing, but I am sorry, I'm an engineer and therefore a geek's geek, and I want to solve this, and I think I have.
Oh yeah,
we're getting down to really nitnoid details that discovered something this last time that it stuck again, that we'll cover in the next show.
Absolutely.
So, with that, as we always say, I think we're at that point where enough talking. We definitely had enough talking. Time to lock ups, put the Jeep in 4-low, and hit the trail.
And remember, take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail.
We want it there for our kids to try it on too.
Absolutely. That's the second time I said I'm getting back in that habit.
Yeah,
I gotta stop. So again, any tech questions, on the trail podcast at gmail.com, and I'll answer, and Kevin will answer. We'll go from there. All right.
All right. We'll see you on the next show.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Patreons.
Bye, Patreons. We're also running out of battery, just in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice segue point.
I think that was a great segue point.
And we talked a little bit about the fact that you have pressure and you have volume, and most people want higher pressure pumps, and that'll drive the manufacturers crazy because it ain't the pressure.
It's the volume.
It's the volume. And so as we get into doing his, we will bring you that whole story when we swap out his box, look at the pump, see if we've got to replace it. And the only thing I'll tease you with on that is the pumps. Jeeps use a different bodied pump. The regular auto version will fit, and the auto stores will sell it to you. But the Jeep body has reinforcing ribs in it, and you got to get that. Or when you tighten the pump onto the Jeep mounts, bing, crack, and it pees. Ask me how I know. So with that, I think we're like at 60 minutes right about now.
You mean 60? Yeah, 60 minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
Jeez Louise.
Who's the engineer on this show, Bucko?
Hold on. We talked about this earlier. You had the piece of paper on the wall.
Literally.
I said I had a piece of paper on the wall too. It just says I went training when I did Showbiz Pizza Place when I was like 9.
Regardless, folks, this is run long enough and been a pretty tech intensive show. I hope it's helpful for those of you who got the TJs that like to leave marks from their spot like a Harley. And of course, Scott always says, if it doesn't mark its spot, check it. It's probably out of oil.
And that was actually kind of scary because when I checked my oil, I didn't see a spot. I'm like, oh no. So I go down and buy the 2 quarts of oil, walk upstairs, and true to form like I am, pull the dipstick out. It was full. I'm like, cool, fixed itself. Just sit back in.
And on that note,
I'm not lying. I actually said that out loud.
I think we've done enough out loud talking. I would say it's time to lock Cubs and hit the trail, wouldn't you?
Well, we got to put the Jeep before low first.
Yeah, we do.
Then we need to make sure we take nothing but pictures, memories, and our trash when we leave the trail.
Take your trash. We do want to have a trail open for our kids and our grandkids.
Exactly. And should you have a question for Kevin or myself, onthetrailpodcast@gmail.com.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye, patrons.
Bye.